Welcome to Clutch Conversations, the series where we dive into the critical challenges shaping businesses today. My name is Sergey. I'm the SVP of Development at Clutch. A topic that we all love and hear about probably 1,000 times on LinkedIn a day. So AI is rapidly evolving how we work and who does the work. Today, we're discussing how to decide when engineering decisions you remove from humans. I'm joined by Russell Anthony. He's the CTO at Kingsman Digital Ventures. They're a digital innovation company specializing in custom software, mobile web, and cloud-based solutions. And before we get into all this fun topic, Russell, tell me more about Kingsman Digital Ventures and how it got started and your role there.
Okay, awesome. We started Kingsman actually 10 years ago in 2016. And at the time, I was an engineering manager for an electronic health record and medical billing company out here. Before that, my career was all startups, kind of 0 to 1 type thing. And what I learned working at that company was just the difference in quality of software that it takes to manage billions of insurance claims, both performatively and securely, and the difference in architecture that it takes to build that kind of real quality software compared to the scrappy little startups I had done before. And the thesis at Kingsman was that there were a lot of companies that weren't traditional software companies that could benefit from that type of software. And our first client was a local healthcare organization where they had personal trainers, nutritionists, chiropractors, doctors all under one roof. And they wanted to build software that could integrate their different systems with the different compliance requirements to streamline their internal operations as well as the customer experience. Things like even being able to track like testosterone levels against strength versus supplement purchases.
Wow. So it's safe to assume with the people you work with, quality and making it right is very important. And so you use AI heavily in your work to develop. How have you transitioned some of those roles that were done by staffers now with AI, but also making sure that the quality, especially for those doctors you mentioned, stays at par?
I do pride myself on as long as we've been in business, our systems they've never gone down, they've never been hacked, right? And that to me is table stakes. That's not going to change, right? So I would say I haven't transitioned any roles to AI, and I don't plan on it anytime in the near future. I don't believe what we're calling AI nowadays, the LLM, is ever going to achieve AGI. What I have transitioned and where I do see opportunity is transitioning responsibilities. Even things like writing detailed Jira tickets from requirements and Figma designs, you can save a lot of leadership time by automating that part of the process. Code reviews, the initial review. It's one thing to just set up GitHub Copilot and say like, hey, this code looks okay, versus actually setting up MCP in context so that it can help review against the requirements. And really, to me, what we're talking about is gaining efficiencies, not replacing people.
So these engineering decisions then become more of effective tooling. And you talked about code review, you talked about maybe some product requirement documentation. Is there any other things that you've locked in that your engineering team really uses, or are you allowing them to kind of experiment on their own?
So for me, again, like the quality of what we release is necessary. So any kind of experimentation that we're doing, I do it at our cost. If there when there are gains, obviously we want our clients to benefit from them. But if I mess around with, let's just say I'm gonna try to use Cursor to vibe code an entire app, and then I look at it, I'm like, okay, this is not the quality we expect. I'm not going to impact the client's timeline, so I can experiment with and say, hey, we messed up, but I'm also not going to build up for that, right?
Yeah.
So it is very experimental. And really, my approach is finding workflows that actually make a difference and then rolling them out to teams where where they get leverage from those tools.
It's funny. I think on LinkedIn the other day, a guy posted, he's like, it was magical. AI rebuilt my whole system in 5 minutes, but now my engineering team's going to spend 6 months fixing it. And so, AI, there's dependencies. How have you layered in the accountability in your team that when pull requests are made, is it certain levels? And who's managing that layer when something breaks?
Right. So I'm of the opinion that managing AI is kind of like managing a junior engineer. It's they might, AI, like for example, there's automated dependency upgrades you might see pop up on GitHub. And you could even set up open Claude to be doing some of this stuff for you and saying, hey, I implemented this because I think it's a good idea. And it's just like hiring a junior. They might be very ambitious and they may sometimes have brilliant ideas that actually matter, and sometimes they might have ideas that are a little misguided, right?
Yeah.
And management's job is to manage that so that what comes out of it is effective and good for the customer, for the company, and also so that the engineer doesn't get burned in the process, right? So to me, whether a junior fresh out of college puts up a PR that breaks something or AI does, the team that owns that system is responsible for what happens when it gets released.
So do you make them understand the markdown files as they're doing it, or have people gotten spoiled a little bit with, hey, AI understands the system, I'm just going to prompt it to do some of the work?
I think I like to compare it to managing a junior engineer. You know, a good lead will give very clear expectations of here's what I want, here's how to do it, here's how to implement it. Not here's how to write the 6 lines of code in this function, but generally speaking, here's the structure of the deliverable. And here's what I want, and here are the acceptance criteria. And here's how I know it's working, right? How they write the function, whether it's, O of n or O of n squared, like that can all be improved, and that's usually not going to be a critical issue. But what does matter is that the team can take ownership of design of what they're going to release and then be accountable to building things the way that they're comfortable maintaining and owning. Right. So it doesn't matter who writes the line of code. It's got to be something that the team wants to own and is comfortable maintaining and can work with.
You just said something that I think about it night and day, maintaining and owning. And there's a lot of, you see it all the time. AI causes job layoffs and engineers are laid off. But at the end of the day, AI cannot critically think the way you're talking about. It cannot own and maintain. What's your opinion to all of the headlines? And, are those real? Is it AI actually automated, or where are we in this life cycle?
So what's interesting is that if you use Claude, let's say thinking, LLMs, really, they're just a prediction sheet. They're choosing the best next word based on everything it's seen before, right?
Hmm.
And part of it now is that it's choosing to make it look like it's thinking, but it's not really thinking. Where it can be very useful and very effective is research. Even putting together a scaffolding of a product requirements document or
Yeah.
suggesting an architecture for a feature. It can move really fast. It can save you a lot of time. But LLMs are never going to think. They're never going to reason, and they cannot replace creative roles. Now, I am an optimist. I believe we will achieve AGI. I don't think it's going to be LLM, right? So what's happening now is you see companies like large companies, I'm not going to name drop anyone, but we see these headlines of 10,000 jobs reduced at company X, right? Because of AI. And there's two things that I see that I believe are happening. One is these are public companies, and every quarter they got to show numbers, and those numbers have to look good, and then their numbers go up, and everyone's happy when the numbers go up, right? So you want the top line to go down, you want or go up, you want the expenses to go down. When you invest $200 billion into AI, how do you not make your expenses go up by $200 billion? For a company of that size, you just have to get rid of people and say it's because of AI, and everyone gives each other high fives and they're like, yes, we automated the jobs. But the reality is, I believe they're largely just managing optics. It's, hey, we're holding on, by a thread with a skeleton crew, right? And we're claiming AI gave us efficiencies, but really we invested into AI and now we have to cover that expense by reducing other expenses. The other thing that I had that I've seen that, and this is somewhat of a conspiracy, but I see it as somewhat of a group negotiation tool. And what I mean by that is that if enough large companies come out and say, "Hey, you, Russell, the engineer, your job is becoming irrelevant because AI can do it," and I hear that over and over and over again, and then I get laid off, right? And then they come back to me a year later and they're like, "I guess we can use you. Here's 60% of your prior comp, take it or leave it." And in my head, I believe that my job has become less relevant. Perhaps there's an angle where if we lay off enough people, you might be able to reduce the expectations of engineering salaries. And obviously, the public companies would love that, just like they would love having less people. But overall, a lot of what we're seeing with these AI investments is coming from the top down. It's not engineers on the ground saying, hey, this thing makes me so much better. We have to use it. It's the CFOs, the CEOs saying, hey, we could save billions of dollars. Let's hope this works.
What a great perspective on that. And I see that all the time. You see Anthropic come out with our entire marketing department was handled by one person for 12 months, but then you go into their job postings and they're hiring 56 marketing people that are, and there's some sort of disconnect with what they're saying. And, you go to a podcast and the head of technology at Anthropic's telling you to spend as many tokens as possible. Well, of course he is.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that is a, so, talking about engineers and what they're feeling and what they're seeing, is there anything you are comfortable with removing from them so they can do the other parts better or do more in your company? Where is that shift coming?
So again, the way I like to think of AI, and it's probably been said too many times, it's a it's a typing speed enhancer, right? So as long as like stay engaged and I'm directing where to go, like as far as like that 0 to 90%, that can get a lot faster. But we also at Kingsman, we see this all the time. It's the last 10% is the hardest. The last 10% can take 50% of the timeline. You can get 90% of the way there with AI, just like you can get 90% of the way there by hiring inexperienced offshore engineers often. Like it can get you somewhere, but actually finishing it to completion in the way that the client likes, that the user likes, that the business is happy maintaining, that part still needs, we call it the adult in the room. There needs to be the babysitter, the owner, the person that says, like, yes, I am not going to sleep until this works correctly. And not only am I saying that, I know how to back that up because I have the experience, right? The architecture, how are we gonna handle, 50,000 TPS with HIPAA compliance? I'm not gonna ask Claude how to. It might give me some ideas. It might help me pick a better encryption algorithm, but the overall structure, the architecture, how it's gonna work, not only do I need to choose that because I don't believe it can, even if it can choose it for me and I get lazy and just let it happen, I've seen this happen to myself and other engineers. It's like when you just try to vibe code and you say, "Hey, Claude, build this app," and it one shots it for you, right? Or build this feature even. And I tried this like a year and a half ago. I was like, wow, Codex is amazing. I have to use this. And I let it build a feature and I review it. And I was like, yeah, this looks mostly right. And then the next feature I'm working on, I have to touch some code that had my name on it that I wrote and I don't understand it. And I'm like, I don't remember writing that. And it's kind of like your brain just kind of turns to mush. It's very interesting, the sensation of like being responsible for code that you didn't write and wouldn't write. So again, I think I'm repeating myself a little bit. But it's very important to stay engaged and to be responsible for the outputs, regardless of who's writing the code. It's just a seniority thing that every engineer learns to do.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are beginning to understand there's a reason why a lot of these projects are failing right now. Either, there's data infrastructure that's not ready for it. Consultants have told them, hey, you can save 90% of your money, but it's not how it actually works. And so people are learning quickly on where you can use it. And there's a lot of great use cases. We even use like Clutch. A lot of our service providers to do as well, but it's tough and people are learning as they go. So who do you think is winning right now? ChatGPT or Claude? OpenAI. I mean,
I think that Claude is winning, and I believe it's because they focused on the enterprise first. Like all the
mhm,
tools, like talking to ChatGPT, making videos with Sora, all that stuff. It's fun, and people get excited about it. But at the end of the day, it's kind of gimmicky, and
yeah,
and I do believe there's going to be some amazing consumer technology that comes out. For example, I can't wait to wear a pin that transcribes every conversation I have and then schedules all the follow-ups and works as like the extreme executive assistant for me, where I can just stop thinking about what do I need to do next, and something's managing that for me. Like, that will be amazing, right? In my personal life and in my business life, right? But even like if you look at what is it, Suna, the music
yeah,
generation tool, it's really cool. When it first came out, I was making all kinds of songs about my dog, about Kingsman, about my wife. But now, if you look at what they're doing, they're trying to shift entirely towards marketing to actual musicians and record studios and things like that, because that's who can actually benefit from it and to make money, right? And charging users $20 a month for ChatGPT when it's subsidized and costing you and your investors $200 a month, like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. But then as soon as you switch to the enterprise edition, and wait, I went over my credits in 20 minutes and now I have to start paying $200 a day extra or $2,000 a day extra or whatever it is they want me to pay. Like now there's actually a path to profitability, right? And no business, regardless of how great they could be, regardless of their potential, without profit, they're going to fail, right? They need the ability to sustain their own operations, right? And that's why I believe Anthropic's doing better because they targeted businesses from day one, and that's what's going to give them the runway to innovate more because they don't have to keep asking investors for more money once they can become profitable.
All right, one last question. If you were to leave kind of one piece of advice for CEOs and or other CTOs who are trying to change their org, what are they getting wrong with AI today that you think that, whether it's them reading the headlines incorrectly or to your point at the beginning, where people are just getting advice because these people are telling them to do it because they need more money. Is there anything you would leave somebody with?
I would argue not to think of it as a cost savings. At the end of the day, I believe best case scenario right now, your investment is going to increase, right? Yeah, I don't think unless you've already overhired and you're going to reduce some roles anyway. Like I don't think we're in a place where you can just start laying people off because you have AI, but you can increase some metrics, whether that's quality, speed. There are ways to get more to the team that you have, but I would just say start conservative. Try to get a 3 or a 5% boost before assuming you can get 50, right? And go from there and learn what works. And when the engineers tell you, here's what's happening, listen to them. Don't say like, hey, here's what I heard from the CEO of NVIDIA. Like, listen to that. Like, did it actually help you? And I will tell you that I've spent a lot of time over the past, I want to say 3 or 4 years now, using agentic workflows and trying to get AI to help me. And I am still on the fence of personally, am I getting more out of it than if I just sat down and write the code myself? I'm on the fence. I can't tell you for certain whether or not it's helping me. And I have every incentive in the world for it to work for me, and to find a way to make it work. And I'm still a little like hesitant. I don't see a reason for me to tell my juniors to start using Claude code instead of doing it themselves. Like I think that's like the equivalent of giving someone a nail gun before they learn how to use a hammer and saying, frame my house. Like it's just
Yeah.
not going to work.
What you just said is so spot on. So I really appreciate that. Russell, where can people find you? Following website.
Uh,
Shameless plugs are completely
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Shameless plugs are completely
Shameless
okay.
plugs. Well, we are usually writing code and not, posting on social media too much. We are a boutique agency, so we don't have a massive marketing firm putting everything on social media and on socials, but our website is kingsmandv.com, DV for Digital Ventures. You can find us on LinkedIn as Kingsman Digital Ventures. I'm on there. My business partner, Brandon's on there. He's super friendly, always available, ready to talk. And then any kind of technical questions or ideas you have, I'm always happy to chop it up with you as well.
I really appreciate your time. I think one thing, just hearing you speak even about your business, the fact that you want to do things right, not just throw AI to cut costs, is something that, I mean, your clients should be very happy for, and any future clients too. So really, thank you for your time, Russell.
Of course, thank you. I really enjoyed this and yeah, look forward to talking to you again.
All right.